there. Welcome to Oh Yes You Can. We're continuing today with our experiments with watercolors, and you're going to need the usual suspects. We're going to need the watercolor paper, the 140 pound. All this is review. Well, you know this from previous episodes. We're also going to need a full-size sheet from that pad today, a 9x12 sheet of watercolor paper. You're going to need your watercolors, your brushes from our little kit, and from that collection, again, you'll need the larger bright and one of the smaller brights for detail work. So put those aside in a safe place. You'll need a pad of paper towels, and you'll need your water tub. Again, I suggest halfway full. I dump it regularly. And today I think that it would be highly helpful if you had your hairdryer handy, because we're going to be doing a wash and there's a lot more liquid than we might normally have on our paper. So a hairdryer is going to be your best friend in a little while. I also suggest for today's purposes that you have some sort of a surface to paint on. You don't have to do this, but it worked best for me when I experimented with this project for today. So a piece of cardboard from a cardboard box is what I have, and this is my demo sheet that I'll show you in just a little bit. This is how we prepare our easel for today's project. I'll get over here so you can see. This is watercolor tape. Not watercolor. Waterproof tape. And I have carefully put it around all the four edges of my watercolor paper so that it's nice and flat and securely fastened to the easel. You will need, I already said that, the watercolor tape. I think I've covered everything you need, except you will need a pencil, briefly. I think that's it. Would you like to see what we're doing today? It's kind of a gloomy day outside today, and so I just wanted to cheer us up with a very bright, happy seascape. Not a landscape, because we're doing our focus on the water, of course, and so it's going to be a seascape. Would you like to do that with me? Gather your materials, come on back, and I'll show you this step-by-step process. Are we ready? I'm going to begin with my pencil. Actually, I'm going to begin with my marker so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to be doing quite a bit of demonstrating for your benefit on this worksheet right here. You will be doing in pencil, step by step, what I ask you to do. So for right now, we are going to put in, with your pencil, with my marker, a very light horizon line across our paper. We want it to be, this is always the decision, do we want more sky in our picture, or do we want more land, in this case water, in our picture? I want a little bit more water because that's the focus of my thinking in this composition. So I'm going to put my line, I'll do it right now so you can see, about a third of the way down, and I would suggest that you use some kind of a straight edge as you draw this line so that it's sort of straight. And it needs to be parallel to the bottom of the page. And I went down probably about halfway. Yeah, about halfway. And I think that's probably the only time you'll need your pencil today. So put that aside, out of your way. And before we try to go any further with this, let's moisten the watercolor paints in our paint box that we will be using today. So I'm going to use my bigger of the two brushes, and I'm going to get into my water tub and drip several drops of water onto the colors that we'll be needing. And those colors are, I'm going to start with yellow. Doesn't really matter, except that I want to remember that I have to clean my brush thoroughly before I can go on to the next color. So first I'm moistening the yellow, and I'm touching the paint with my brush so I know I have painted my brush, and I have to go dip, dip, dip in the water, pat, pat, pat on the paper towel, and go to the next color, which is orange. Drip, drip, drip into the orange. Dirty brush, I touch the color. Clean it in the tub of water. Swipe, swipe, swipe the water out. Go back and get clean water. Go to the red. Same process. Dirty brush. Wash, wash, wash. Tap out the water. So far we've done yellow, orange, and red. Let's also go to clean brush. Tap, tap, tap. Clean water in the brush. Let's go to the purple. Clean the brush. And we might need, don't know for sure yet, don't need to know for sure if we need blue, but I'm going to go ahead and moisten the blue in mine just in case I need it. Clean my brush. And we've never done this before, but we might need black. Very carefully. I don't like to use black as a rule, but I found that's what I needed today to get the shading in one part of it. So I'm going in and I'm also moistening the black. Okay, clean my brush. Boy, that black doesn't want to get out of my brush. Now I think I've got it clean. Okay, put those aside for a minute. And for what we're doing next, I'm going to be doing probably some demo and then give you time to do it. The first thing we're going to do is prepare to do a wash on the sky part of our picture. And to do that, we're going to use our clean brush, no paint, no paint, no paint, just a clean brush with water. And we're going to paint that whole top section from the horizon line up. Plain water, cover it all, but don't hold it up like I am, because your water will go where you don't want it. So, again, plain old water, nothing else, on the top section of your painting, from the horizon line all the way to the top, working flat on your work surface. Why don't you do that right now? And I'm doing the same thing on mine. Wide, sweeping strokes all the way across the paper. I'm putting lots of water on because this process is going to allow the paint to blend together. We don't always want it to blend together, but for this particular process called wash, we do want the colors to do some blending. Now, if you got too much water on your paper, which it's easy to do, just carefully tip your paper up sky down, sky down. You don't want the water running anywhere else, and let the water run off. Any of those puddles that you got, just let them run off. Wipe them up with your paper towel so they're not in your way for the next step. Now, I need to demonstrate this next step to you. I'm going to go in I'm doing a night sky. Doing a night sky up in here. And I started with, your colors may vary a little bit, so feel free to do a little bit of blending. I started with a purple. And I'm going to, with a little bit drippy, just a little bit drippy brush, go into the purple and drag some purple over here into the mixing tray. In fact, I'm going to bring more because we'll need this color several times. I need more water to get more purple over here. And the reason I said that about mixing is my purple is more of a red-violet, and I wanted the evening colors, so I'm going to clean my brush of that purple that I just dipped out, starting with a clean brush, and go to the blue. And this is just to change the tone of my purple a little bit and make it a little bit more the night shade that I have in mind. And mix that blue in. And see if you like that color. Okay, with that in your brush, that mixture of purple and blue, let's go across, all the way across our painting. Go back and get more paint as you need to. You want to put this color in kind of a semicircular shape across the whole paper. It takes quite a bit of water to get this paint to move, and I'm going to take a chance and hold mine up and show you in a minute, because I didn't demonstrate the semicircle I was talking about. I just did it. Okay, maybe that won't drip. I left this section in here right above the horizon line unpainted. Probably gave you backwards directions on that, but I think we can do this. We're going to start right where my finger is, right roughly in the middle of our canvas, our watercolor paper, and we're going to begin with yellow. This is the sunset we're putting in right now. So we're going to begin with the brightest color, which will be our yellow, and we're going to put it in a, I'll show you over here on the other side of my paper. We are going to put in just the glow of the sun as it drops below the horizon. That's going to be bright, bright, bright yellow. And above that, the next color in the sunset is probably going to be orange. The orange in my paint box is kind of bright, so I think I'm going to use orange diluted with a little bit of water so that it's just not quite as bright. I'm going to put another ring above that. Don't do this yet. And then above that, I'm going to put yet another ring of red. Again, my red is kind of a little bit too much, so I'm going to dilute it a bit with water. So now we have yellow, orange, red, and we'll probably have to go back and add some sky color because I've let it dry too much for them to blend the way I want them to. But we'll take care of that. Let's right now with our, probably the big fat brush still, get into the yellow. My brush was not clean. I have to go back and get that purple out because I don't want to dilute, or rather change the color of the yellow on mine. So I'm going into the yellow on my canvas. Watercolor paper is what I meant to say. And my yellow is a very weak yellow. I'm having to go back several times to get some yellow to come off on my paper as dark as I want it. Okay, now I'm going to clean that brush. That orange, remember, is a little bit intense, so I weakened it with water, and it's still intense. More water. Tap, tap, tap. I don't want it to drip. Big circle out around my orange. Clean my brush. Red was too strong, so I'm adding water to dilute it. Circle of red. And I have let this get entirely too dry. So I am going to go back, clean my brush. What I wanted to have happen is to let these all blend together, and I let this get too dry. I actually had you do it in the wrong order. My bad. So let's go back now, and we're going to dip back into that original color, and we're going to fill in down along the sides here of our sunset on both sides, all the way down to the horizon line, and we're adding water. We're going to be generous with our water this time so that it can get down in to these brighter colors and begin to blend them. Let me get some on my paper and you get some on your paper. Remember, we're beginning with the sky color right now, so that was the purplies, and we're going all the way to the horizon line. And that was the purple and just a touch of the blue in it. And I'm coming in with water clear over into the edge of my bright colors. More water, a little bit more purple. I've almost got a covering, and I'm going to go into those bright colors now. And I cleaned my brush and just went into the yellow and pulled it out to the orange, and orange and pulled it out to the red, and red and pulled it out onto the sky color. And I need more water because it's still too dry. Okay, and I turned my sky down to let the water, the moisture that I just added to my composition, to let it run down and let those colors blend a little bit more. You can kind of watch that and watch it blending in colors. And I see I've got some lines right in here, and that means that I've got too much dry in between. I'm going to have to add some more water and blend all those lines in. And just because I think it needs more depth in the sky, I'm going to go back up where I started at the very top and add more of the dark sky color. And more water, and I'm going to get those colors blending together. I'm adding more water all the way across. Again, holding it like this, sky pointing down, so that the colors will blend toward the top of the picture. That'll work. That'll work. And if I decide later that I want my sky darker, which I probably will, I will go back in with a blend of blue, maybe the purple color and blue, and just a touch of black, just to darken it some, because we are talking about later in the afternoon when the sky is really darkening after the sun goes down. So to get that effect, and you don't have to do it right now, you can go back and moisten your your painting a little bit later on if you want to. Again, blue and black, black in moderation, wet brush, and blend that upper corners and upper portion of the sky a little bit darker, like night falls almost upon us. Okay, now's when you need your hair dryer, because the next step needs to have a totally dry paper to work on. We don't want any more blending at this point. So with your hair dryer, remember to hold it above your work so that if you have any puddles, that you won't be making them go where you don't want them to go. So hair dryer, about 10 inches or so. I'm touching mine to see if it's dry, and it's not quite dry, so I think I need to give it another minute with the dryer. Well, that wasn't a minute, but it feels pretty dry now. When it still feels cool to your touch, it's probably a little bit too wet to take our next steps. So make sure that it's room temperature to your touch. And then we'll go on to the next step. And we're going to put in just the reverse of the sky now, because it's reflecting down into the ocean. So we're going to begin with our big brush. And I think we're going to begin with a little bit of water on here too. And for this one, again, I'm going to go to my marker and show you where we're painting next. This is what we did before. Now, your mind tells you, okay, where the sun's setting is going to be the brightest spot in our picture. And as we come further down our paper, it's going to diffuse, take up more space on our paper, and get a little lighter. So, with that in mind, we don't have to draw this. I'm just doing it so that you can see what I'm talking about. We're going to my marker just about ran out. I don't think you can see that. It really was just kind of going dry on me, so I'll come back in with my pencil. And inside that shape that I just drew, you're going to do the reverse of the sky. The first one under the sun will be the yellow. The next one to follow will be the orange, then the red. And let's make these take up a lot more space, because we're going to go all the way to the bottom of the paper with a modicum of this coloration. So let's begin with a clean brush. Oh, I need clean water. That happens frequently. Go and get some clean water if you need to, because if you use dirty water on your painting, you're going to get dirty spots that you don't want. And of course we want this yellow to be the brightest possible thing we can get on our paper, because it is the reflection of the sun. So I've got a clean brush now, clean water. I'm going to go in with quite a bit of water on my brush. I'm not going tap this time. I'm going in with quite a bit of water on my brush, and I'm going to dip into the yellow. And because my yellow is a kind of a weak yellow. I'm not diluting it at all other than the water that's on my brush. So I'm going to start under the sun. Remember, this is the reverse of the colors we did before. I can't believe that. I have a speck of some kind of other color still in my brush. Clean it some more. Go back and get yellow paint. And I'm coming down and filling up that triangular shape with lots of yellow paint all the way, well, not all the way down the page, maybe. About half the remaining space under the sun. Okay, my orange, I still have some of that diluted orange remaining, so I'm going to come in next to the yellow, in fact overlapping the yellow just a bit. This is the orange I'm working with. And I'm coming on down, filling in that triangular area. My orange is getting a little bit too light down here, so I'm going to go back and pick up a little bit more orange because it was too sudden a change. That's better. Now, again, with a wet brush, red paint, it was a little strong, so I'm diluting it a bit and coming all the way to the bottom of the page, filling in that triangle and overlapping the orange just a little bit. Now, I think those colors are a little bit too abrupt to change, so I'm cleaning my brush. No paint, just clean water, and I'm going back at the edge of the yellow and orange and going back and forth between them so that the colors blend. I like that better. I've got the same situation down here where the orange and the red come together. It just changes too quickly, so I'm going to clean my brush. Go in with a clean, kind of wet brush and just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Work some of that red up into the orange, some of that orange down into the red as well. Yeah, that looks much more like it. I didn't pay too much attention to the edge of the triangle. I just needed to stay in the general area so that I had a nice path of the sunlight reflecting on the water. Now I'm going to go back to my sky colors again. And if you're just like mine, you probably used up most of what you had in your mixing tray. So let's bring over some more purple into the mixing tray. Our goal this time is for the next step to be just slightly darker than the sky. So I'm going back into the purple, back into the blue, adding some blue to this. And let's see what I've got for a color here. Might be a little too dark. So I can add a tiny bit more water to the mix on my mixing tray. I'm working with the purple and the blue, and I just touched it with red just because I thought it needed a little brightening up. Test that color on your paper towel and see how it looks. And now what I want you to do is come into the horizon line and fill in the water. And you're going to go all the way down on either side of the sunset with that sky color. And it may not be, I have to decide as I go on. I just added a touch of black just out of curiosity to see how it looks, and it looks pretty good. All the way down to the bottom. And I'm having to go back and get more paint and more water as I go, because I've got a lot of space to fill. And I just ran out of purple paint before I ran out of use for it. So I have to mix some more purple, some more blue, try to get it the same shade you had before. Make your strokes go back and forth across the paper. Back and forth, back and forth. Let's don't do any up and downs or anything like that. Back and forth across the paper. And now would be the time for us to come in and connect the purple with that sunset area with kind of jaggedy lines. This is what I'm talking about. Again, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like that. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side of the picture. Come in under the, right at the horizon line, and come across and fill in that whole space from the horizon line all the way down the rest of the picture. And remember, we took big wide strokes. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth. I just added water without adding paint, and of course that diluted my color, and I have to go back and put a little more dark in there, all the way down to the bottom, and a little darker right down here in the lower left corner, because that's closer to me. And while we're doing this, let's connect our edges just like we did over here on the other side. Kind of back and forth to do a bit of overlap. This is just my brush with the paint that was already in it. Just kind of back and forth with a little bit of a wiggly line all the way down. Now, just for fun, just because it's getting closer to us, with a little bit of purple mix that we still have in our brush, let's put in just a couple of random lines down here toward the bottom of the composition, so that we can begin to get the notion that there's a little bit of wave action going on. Just a couple of, or half a dozen, random perpendicular lines across. What do you think? Not too bad, huh? Does your sky need darkening? That's up to you. Do you think your sky looks a little bit too daylighty? You decide. I think I noticed something I don't like about mine. Right here at the horizon line, I can't see where the water line is, so I need to come in with a diluted purple and bring my horizon line over just at least a bit into that sunset so that I can see what it's supposed to be. Wow. I like it. I like the bright colors. Do you? Let's have a little bit of fun with the finishing touches on this now. Clean that big brush. I think we're done with it. Clean it and tap it sort of dry and put it aside and get our little brush. We're going to do a tiny bit of detail work now, just for fun. First thing we're going to do is put in, I don't know if you can tell by looking at this one or not, but there's a lot more black worked into some of my areas than we did on this one that you and I are doing right now. That's up to you. Remember I told you can go back and moisten that and work in some black if you want to. Carefully, you don't want any sharp lines. You want it all blended softly together. Anyhow, first item of detail we're going to do is put in these cool little barrier islands out here. And for that, you're going to need the darkest dark you can find, and if it's black, fine. I have a little bit of purple mix still on my mixing tray, so I'm going to just use that and add black. And now, using the sharp edge of my little brush, I'm going to go in just under I was going to show you on the other paper, but I guess I won't. Just under the horizon line, come across with a little straight line that's just parallel to that horizon line. Using your little brush on the edge, we want a relatively narrow line in there. And now we need to have a little reason for it so that we can know what we're drawing out there. So let's add little rocks or foliage or something. Again, with our brush, we're just going to push a little bit of that black paint up here and there. Irregular. Some of it could be trees and bushes. Some of it could be rocks. And I made it also come out into the yellow part of the sunset just a bit, just because that's how I think a barrier island would look. See, you can see some of the ocean behind the edge of the barrier reef. Kind of sets the sunset off in detail. Alright, just for fun, let's go over, and not exactly opposite. I'm going to make mine a little bit higher, closer to the horizon line. I'm going to put in another barrier reef over there with my dark little brush standing on its nose, so I have just the sharpest edge showing. And I've got another barrier island, but it needs a little growth. This one's further away, so let's don't make our trees and bushes and rocks quite as tall. It's a little further out in the ocean, so everything looks further away. Make those, whatever you're adding, make it a little bit irregular. And I must have had too much water on my brush, because that's not as dark as I wanted it right there on that section. So now I'm cleaning my brush while I think about it. I'm starting to like that. Now, what's the story behind this? It can be any story you want. My story is that there's a solitary fisherman out there on the water. And he is in a boat. So with my little brush, using just the edge once again, I'm going to go into my darkest dark, probably the black, and I am going to down here somewhere. Put in a couple lines like that. I started to say what shape it was going to be, but I can't remember what that's called. Trapezoid, maybe. When I get the other two lines in, and that is. Okay. Bottom of the boat. Top of the boat. And fill in the middle. Again, we're using the darkest color. Okay, doesn't look like a boat yet, but let's keep going. Up above where the man's head would be, let's put just a little dot for his head. And then let's just make his shoulders a little bit wider, but certainly not as wide as the boat is. I told you he was fishing. Let's give him a fishing pole again. Just the edge of your little brush, just the sharp edge only. Line up. Line down to the water. Ta-da! He has a fishing pole. Now that probably is not realistic yet because all those things that we just put in cast a little bit of shadow from the sun going down way over there on the horizon. So we'll have just a teeny tiniest little line out from the fishing line. And just, I hope your brush is almost dry. Perfect. Under the boat, let's just go wig-wag back and forth. Just a tiny bit for some shadow of the boat. Irregular, back and forth. Wiggle-waggle. You probably still have enough paint in your brush to do this final step. If he's out there fishing, he's got companions because the gulls probably want to feast on whatever he catches. Let's give him some gull companions. Sharp edge of our smallest brush, we are going to make a series of V-shapes. That's all there is to it. My brush was too dry. Water. I'm using my darkest paint again, the black in this case. Just a V shape. If they're going the other direction, then we start with that stroke and go up that way. Now, if the gulls are close to you, they're going to be larger than any that you might put far away. So, with a brush that is just damp, not drippy, black paint, let's give him some gulls up here to supervise his fishing adventure. There's one. Gulls rarely travel alone though, so he needs needs companions. That one was, kind of very large because it's almost bigger than he is. Maybe it's closer to me. That's what it is. Okay, I'm going to make a little one way back over there. Oh, I got too much paint. Too much water in my brush. Shame on me. I just really got a big old glob. Big mistake. So I'm going to have to go in with my little brush. Clean. Just barely damp. Go in there with the sharp edge of my brush and just scoop toward that boo-boo shape. and clean between each effort, and hopefully I can lift most of that black off. Not working very well yet because I really did get a lot on there. I came in with the paper towel and blotted up some of it, and that helped. Show you in a minute. Sometimes we can fix our mistakes. I'm going back in with a clean brush each time, washing it out each time to get out that paint that I'm trying to remove. I can't get it out 100%, but I think I got enough that it'll work now. Just a little extra shadow in my water there. Alright, I still wanted another seagull in my picture, so I cleaned my brush. This time I made sure it's almost dry. And just on the corner of my little brush, I'm going to put my V gull in. And let's see. I'm going to put one up here in the sky just because. And another one up here in the sky. And maybe another one down here right near his boat, a little bit bigger. Put as many as you want. Gulls just like to flock around in mass, don't they? And feed over whatever looks tempting to them. What do you think? Not too shabby. Not too shabby for our first seascape. When this is absolutely perfectly dry, you can remove it from the easel and frame it or whatever. When you are ready to do that, and I'm not ready because mine's not perfectly dry, be sure that you pull the tape away from the painting so that if there's anything wet underneath the edge of the tape, there shouldn't be, but if there is, it'll pull away from your finished drawing. And you'll have a nice clean white strip around this, and if you're going to frame it, it's just kind of part of the frame already in place for you. Not too bad, not too bad. Sign your work, put it away in your portfolio, clean up your workspace, and start planning your next watercolor project because, oh yes you can. Bye.